My name is Flavia Kunihira, your host, and on today's segment, we discuss World Earth Day that is annually celebrated on the April 22nd. On this very special episode, we are going to discuss the theme Plastics versus the Planet, which was the theme for the World Earth Day 2024. With me in studio, I'm joined by two special guests from Caritas Uganda, with whom we're going to deep dive into this topic that is affecting the world globally. You are most welcome.
Thank you so much. My name is Betty Rosa Aguti. I'm the policy and advocacy specialist of Caritas Uganda, and I'm also the national coordinator of Uganda Farmers Common Voice platform. I'm so glad to be in this show today.
Yes, on this end, Godfrey Onentho Otwi. I head the research, advocacy and innovations at Caritas Uganda, but also a specialist on four: the climate change, environment and natural resource management. So I come in that capacity.
You're most welcome. First things first, what is World Earth Day and when was it started? What are the actual reasons behind the commemoration of this day?
Thank you very much, Flavia. Yes, World Earth Day is a day that is celebrated annually, and it is purposed to help humanity to take care of Mother Earth and to do actions that go a long way to protect Mother Earth. The World Earth Day was started long time ago, that is in 1970, when there was a spillover of oil in one of those European countries, and the citizen in that country rose up against the government why the spillover of the oil was not being addressed. And since then, there was a campaign that was launched. Letters were wrote to the members of parliament. People were demonstrating on the streets demanding for action from government because the oil was a nuisance in the environment. The oil was smelly and the oil was spoiling people's shoes. The oil was spoiling the environment. Since then, after 1970, the World Earth Day has become an annual event that is always being celebrated globally. And up to today, as we speak, over 193 countries celebrate the World Earth Day, including Uganda, which has started off recent celebrating the World Earth Day with the purpose to drum up support and to call upon the different stakeholders to take action to protect Mother Earth. This has even been made better by the Pope's letter to the whole world that is called Laudato Si, where the Pope is calling upon the whole world. So long as you're a human being created by God, you are being called by the Pope to come and take action to protect Mother Earth, because Mother Earth is calling for help. Mother Earth is crying for support from us who are supposed to be the stewards. That is why Mother Earth is being celebrated in Uganda. The Mother Earth Day, like Flavia was just saying, is always marked on the 22nd of April. And as civil society, including Caritas Uganda, we always come together in a concerted effort. And this has been since we started celebrating in 2008 and 18. This has been celebrated regionally and in all nations. And what we do is we mobilize communities in such areas, in such regions, to come together for the service and for the environment. And we do a number of activities during the Earth Day celebration. For example, we do cleanup. When you move everywhere around our environment, we have a menace of plastics and other garbage. So what we do during this Earth Day celebration, we always do a cleanup of the environment. We do dialogues with the different stakeholders, all with the purpose of raising awareness of how humanity has destroyed the environment, of how we need to come to action, and what needs to be done for us to clean up the environment. That is what we always do during the Mother Earth celebration.
Plastic pollution is a major concern in Fort Poto City. Studies estimate that in Uganda, an average of 1,500 tons of plastic waste is generated daily, with 500 tons properly managed. Most of the waste generated is not safely recycled and goes into the environment, that is to say, River Mpanga. This has proven to contribute to environmental and health risks to human and animal life. It is everyone's responsibility to safely dispose plastics, and the leaders should encourage the adoption of the 3 R's: reduce, reuse, and recycle. What was the theme for the World Earth Day 2024, and how does it relate to the work that Caritas Uganda is implementing?
This theme is very, very important. That's plastics and the planet. If you will recall, those who are very keen on following some of these environmental activities globally and also nationally, last year's the theme for last year's World Environment Day actually focused on plastic pollution specifically, and it is very interesting that the World Earth Day this year picked the same theme more or less. So therefore, for the last 2 years, there's been a very deep reflection on the effect of plastics. Plastics that are being produced in very, very large quantities globally on the earth, but not just on the earth, but on the living creatures, or the living components of the earth. And these are, for example, human beings. You have other animals. You have plants. You have aquatic species or creatures, and all this. So, and therefore, if you look at this theme in terms of its significance, it's quite a very significant thing. It's quite important because of the effect. Because if you go out there and you look at a number of our water bodies, including Lake Victoria, right now, you realize that sections of Lake Victoria, are very heavily polluted by plastics. Then you go to our trenches here in the cities, you realize the lot of plastic that is there, plastic bottles, and so forth. Then you go to gardens, to fields. Sometimes you'll find a number of these plastics littered all over the place, and a plastic takes very many years to decompose. Some of them take as many as 200 years. 200 years. None of us can live for 200 years. So meaning the more we use plastics and then dispose of them recklessly, the more the risk, for the earth, the more the risk for the other creatures that live on the earth or depend on it. And therefore, the significance lies very much in the way plastics, for example, affect us, affect the environment, they affect soil fertility, they affect production of the soil, but also they affect human health, they affect the health of animals, because we ingest plastic. A lot of it is ingested. Sometimes in this bottled water, and then you see people wrapping food with the Cavera and all these kind of things. So we are consuming huge amounts of, quite significant amount of plastics, posing real risk. Then you have animals that are also ingesting it. You have cattle, for example, ingesting, goats and so forth, and some of these die. So if you look at, therefore, at the effects of plastics, not only are they rising, but that this becomes a very major issue for us because of what really is happening. Hence, the need to take action, very stern action.
Thank you so much, Godfrey. Picking from your contribution, plastics are such a critical environmental issue. So how has Caritas Uganda tried to address this challenge within its advocacy and research initiatives?
Thank you very much, Flavia and Godfrey, for highlighting on that. Since the start of plastic manufacturing way back in 1950, plastics have continued to be manufactured by the different industries and factories. And plastics in Uganda have been considered as the most effective way of carrying our food, of carrying any material that you want to carry. and this makes the plastic the most affordable item that one can use to carry their items here and there. And yet at the same time, plastics have been considered to be so dangerous by the different researches that have been carried out. A research, for example, carried out by the World Climate School Uganda chapter indicates that over 70% of the plastics end up in the landfills, they end up in the lakes, rivers, and they become a serious environmental challenge. Why then could we say that these are a challenge? Plastics are a very big challenge, like Godfrey was saying. When they end up on our soil, some plastics live there to close to 200 or even 400 years before they are degraded or broken down. But at the same time, when they are broken down, they end up into our food system, they end up into our water system, and you find that the food we are eating today, the water that we are drinking today is highly contaminated with residues of plastics, which poses a very big danger to the life of human beings and also to the life of animals. And yet at the same time, I should mention this before I forget that during the campaigns that Caritas Uganda has been doing, that we are going to delve in now, the NEMA had given the plastic industries up to 2024 only to reduce on their production of the plastic materials that they are having. So all that is a very big danger to our environment. Flavia was asking, what is it that Caritas Uganda is doing to try to reduce the plastic waste or the pollution by plastic? Caritas Uganda, one of the civil society organizations, and yet it is also a church organization, is so concerned about the lives of the people and the livelihoods of the people. So you find that when there is a lot of pollution from plastics, it affects human life, human health through the food system. It also affects the production and productivity of products of agriculture. The farmer is affected, but also the environment is affected. The impacts we are seeing today, like the floodings that we are seeing, are as a result of the plastics that have gone into the lakes, that have closed the rivers, that are clogging the wetlands that are supposed to be the lungs of the earth. All these are clogged to the extent that the wetlands no longer play their role. So that is why Caritas is so interested in protecting Mother Earth. We have done a lot of work to try to protect and save Mother Earth. We have a lot of campaigns that we always do. For example, annually we celebrate key events. Number one is the Earth Day. Caritas Uganda joins the rest of Ugandans and civil society to celebrate and commemorate a World Earth Day. And we do a lot of activities, like I had already mentioned. We do school engagements, and which we call youth and environment engagement. We do a lot of debates. We do a lot of symposiums where we bring key stakeholders together to debate and discuss issues to deal with environmental protection. We also do a lot of cleanups. Last year we were celebrating Earth Day here in Uganda, in Kampala, and we had the celebrations in Nakawa division, and the reason for choosing Nakawa division was because of the pollution, the plastic pollution that was in Nakawa division, and particularly our attention was on Lake Victoria shore and in Luzira, where we did a lot of cleanups. So we do campaigns. We also do advocacy Advocacy is our key thematic area when it comes to issues to deal with environment protection. We advocate for favorable laws and policies for Uganda so that Ugandans are protected. Then we also advocate and encourage our communities and the farmers we work with to plant trees, and even ourselves, we encourage ourselves as the staff of Caritas Uganda to plant trees. There is currently a promotion that we are carrying on to all dioceses, the planting of trees, beneficial trees. For example, the candle nut tree and the hash avocado, those trees that are so beneficial, plus any other tree that is beneficial to the environment. So we are doing a lot to campaign and see to it that we protect Mother Earth. I can leave my colleague Godfrey to add more on what we are doing as Caritas Uganda to protect and save Mother Earth. Thank you.
Okay, so before we continue to add on more what Caritas is doing, Godfrey, could you please elaborate more on how Caritas is enforcing the advocacy work to make sure that the regulatory frameworks of NEMA are being put in place within the communities we're operating in?
There are two things here. I'm going to respond to them at the same time. One, of course, is to add to what Beth has said, but specifically on advocacy work as far as plastic pollution is concerned. I will recall in 2018, we made a public statement during the World Environment Day that was celebrated in Mbale. Yeah, I think it was 2018. And that was the first time we made that public statement, and we are highlighting the dangers that plastic, for example, pose to human health as well as to health of the other animals of the soil and so forth, water bodies and so forth. And I remember that time the Minister of Water and Environment was there, and we made a very strong statement and appeal to abolish the manufacture of what we call single carrier bags. Single carrier bags. These coveras, the black coveras you see around, the white coveras that people use for packing, these are Rolex and so forth and so on. So we made that statement, we gave the paper to her. And then the minister at that time rose up and said, actually, she was going to make sure that was done. And then later, when Anyuar, Honorable Anyuar was that time appointed the Minister, I think, of Environment, she came up with a statement, a very strong statement, that the manufacture of single-use plastic bags would be abolished forthwith. But of course, it wasn't really done. Then that same year, I remember, there was a process of amending or reforming the National Environment Law in the country. We had the National Environment Act. Now, Caritas led the civil society organizations, and we are thankful to Caritas Norway that sponsored that whole process in making about 3 submissions before the Parliamentary Committee on Natural Resources. We made three submissions. And the submissions focus on other issues, but eventually zeroed down on how the law could be reformed in such a way that it would really ban or abolish completely the manufacture of what we call the carrier, the polythene bags. The polythene bags. We advocated for total abolition. But when we went in there, before the committee, remember, we had also the Association of Manufacturers and so forth, who were there making their submissions. And I will recall that there was a lot of controversy over there. But eventually, Parliament asked us to come back and propose alternatives. Then we made another submission, to Parliament, bring out very concrete proposals, particularly focusing on alternatives to plastics. And then after that, there was a third submission. Parliament again asked us to go for a third submission to add some other things. So we had a real engagement with the Parliament that time. And very fortunately, Parliament picked up a lot of these ideas, but eventually came up with a compromise position. But even before Parliament eventually passed this law, we organized a public dialogue. And that public dialogue, again, was sponsored at that time by Caritas Norway. Brought together traders. We had, for example, the leadership of the traders in town. We had members of Parliament of the Natural Resources Committee. And then we had civil society organizations. We had so many people. It was a very big meeting. I remember even other ordinary traders did come there because they were very concerned about their trade. Those particularly were trading in this, in plastics. So eventually, after that dialogue, there's a compromise position that if we were to go for abolition, we should abolish the manufacture, importation, and distribution of a certain micron, plastics of a certain micron. So if you go there for, I think it is section 59, if I'm not mistaken, of the National Environment Act, that compromise position was put right there. But also we insisted on the provision for the responsibility of the manufacturers, of plastics, for example, to be able to collect these plastics, from the environment for purpose of recycling or for purpose of safe disposal. So the polluter pays principle, for example, something we insisted on very, very strongly, and I'm very happy it is in the National Environment Act. So that was our main engagement. Now, at the community level, we have been involved very much in awareness raising. I remember during one of the Namugongo celebrations, I think before the COVID, we worked together with the NEMA under Uganda Episcopal Conference, and then Vivo Energy, NBS, and so forth. So we had a very huge campaign around Namugongo, to ensure believers did not go to Namugongo with the plastics, with any carrier bags that were plastic. So that campaign kicked off, and we thought it would build momentum until these plastics were completely abolished. Unfortunately, that wasn't done. And as we talk now, I think there's been a problem with the enforcement. Part of the challenge we have right now is that the minister who is mandated by this law to come up with the regulations for purpose of reinforcing this national environment, that provision has not yet come up with any regulations. So basically as Caritas, that's what we're doing. And then we continue to raise awareness among our farmers whom we work with through different fora and so forth. They have been doing this. And then also for a long time on Radio Sapientia, there was a program here by Caritas Uganda. I think a weekly program for a very long time, almost a full year. I was one of the panelists where we're raising awareness on environmental issues on a weekly basis. And among these were plastic pollution. So these were the things that we're doing as Caritas Uganda, and we continue to do as Caritas Uganda.
To our viewer, I would like us to get into a short break, and we'll be right back. Welcome back from the short break. You are still on Caritas Focus, and we are still discussing the topic of plastics versus planet, which was the theme for World Earth Day 2024. With me in studio, I still have the guests from Caritas Uganda, Betty Aguti and Godfrey Onentho, with whom we are tackling and discussing this issue in depth. My next question goes to Betty. We are talking about plastics and pollution in our country. What is the current status of plastics in the country, and how is it an issue to our communities?
Thank you very much, Flavia. The issue of plastic, like we have already highlighted, is a very, very serious one that I can equate it to us sitting on a time bomb, and anytime it will blast and we shall have trouble. There is plastic everywhere, and we are consuming plastics every day. When you eat food that is produced today, there are particles of plastics there. When you drink water from a mineral water bottle, there are particles that are microplastics that we may not be able to see with our naked eyes. The food, the fish that we eat, sometimes eat some of the plastic that goes into the lake, and when they eat this, it goes into the system of the fish. The animals, the meat, the cows and the goats that we enjoy, they eat some of these plastics. Animals are not like human beings that you can see this one physically and you remove. Animal chews whatever it is. When it is mixed with the grass, it chews even with the plastic. And this plastic goes into the food system of this animal, and later on we eat these animals, and we also get them plastics which are not really seen from these animals. So currently, research from NEMA indicates that as a country, on daily basis, we have or we produce about 600 tons of waste of plastic. But what is very, very disturbing is out of the 600 tons, only 40% of this waste is being collected. The rest of the 60% is just thrown up and down in the environment, in the trenches, in the rivers, in the lakes. And at the end of the day, the cycle continues, and you find that our environment is disturbed. I must say, before we end this show, that it is our responsibility as human beings, everybody who God gave 2 eyes and 2 hands and 2 legs, and so long as you're created by God, you have a responsibility to make sure we reverse this situation of plastic waste and waste in general, because this waste goes into our system. We carried out a study as Caritas Uganda to see how some of the water is polluted by the actions of people, by the actions of farmers. And we realize that be it water that you get from a spring, it is polluted. Be it water from the borehole, there are particles and residues of the pollutants, be it chemicals, be it plastic. Be it water from the manufactured water, there are particles of these pollutants in it. So together we need action as a country, as Ugandans, as people who were given the responsibility by God to be the stewards of the environment. And then in addition to that, the manufacturers need to take up their responsibility. The manufacturers need not to only look at profits, but they need to look at only people's lives, people's health, and people's livelihood. So let the manufacturers also think twice, and let them be the stewards and also the keepers of their brother. Like in Genesis, we are told to be the keepers of our brother. But if you are only manufacturing and the rest is to whom it may concern to collect this plastic waste and any other waste, then you're not doing a service to this country. You're not doing a service to God Almighty, who created you and put you where you are and gave you the business that you are doing. Manufacturers out there, this is a very big call to you. You must take responsibility and collect the waste that you produce, and henceforth it is my prayer, and I will ask everybody who can pray to help pray so that the manufacturers may take this upon themselves to at least brand their own plastic items that they produce, and they take responsibility to collect off those plastics. I have been in other countries out there whereby everything is very precious. We need to recycle these plastics. For example, when I was in Denmark, I bought yogurt, but it was in a paper bag. It was in a box. And this box, it is written on top, this box is recycled. Take the yogurt, and the next day you go and pick the next sip of the yogurt. You take this paper box to the seller, to the supermarket, and you're given the yogurt at a reduced cost. This is what our country Uganda needs to do, and this is what the manufacturers need to do. Let us not waste. By so doing a one-use plastic, we are also wasting resources. We would have produced more by recycling these plastics, not really recycling, reusing them. Let's also indicate on top of some of these plastics we produce, for example, when you bring back this bottle to the place or to the supermarket you bought the bottle from, or the water or the yogurt from, you are given the next yogurt at a reduced cost. I think this is a motivation that will help this country to get rid of the plastics.
Thank you very much, Betty. Back to you, Godfrey. We earlier on had discussed a few existing policies by NEMA in the country. What are some of these changes or improvements that need to be done to make sure that the implementation of these policies is actually effective, both by the government and by the civil societies like Caritas Uganda?
There are a number of strategies that can be employed, but the major one is to really to enforce the provision of the law of the National Environment Act that bans the manufacture of certain categories of plastics, but also that imposes obligations on the manufacturers to ensure that the plastics that go out there are collected and so forth. It actually imposes some penalties, on manufacturers, for not doing certain things that are required by the law. Now, the issue that we have, which I think is a big one at the moment, is the delay of the regulations accompanying the National Environment Act that would enable, the ombudsman or the regulator, that's NEMA, to be able to enforce that provision of the law. But that said, the fact that there is already a principal law that bans this kind of provisions and then also empowers NEMA, for example, to take any action necessary to protect the environment, I do think that NEMA still needs to style up. I think there's a lot of politics as far as the plastics business in this country is concerned. I remember last year during the World Environment Day in Kololo, I think it was in Kololo last year, the executive director of NEMA did announce a partnership with the private sector for purpose of managing plastics. Well, the content of the MOU was not disclosed to the public, but I remember he made that announcement that time. And actually, the MOU was signed, if I'm not mistaken, in public in Kololo, if I can still recall. Now, one of the idea behind was that the private sector would work with the NEMA to ensure that the policies that regulate the manufacture, importation, exportation, and exportation of plastics is effectively reinforced, is effectively implemented. That the provision of the law of the National Environment Act, I still believe it is Section 59, is effectively, for example, reinforced. But again, one year down the road, I'm dismayed by the fact that if I step out there in a little shop in my neighborhood, I'll find volumes and volumes of plastics, being dished out, for example, to customers who come there to buy goods. So meaning, the manufacture of plastics, particularly the single-use carrier bags, is continuing unabated. So this is a question that we need to ask NEMA, for example, why this is continuing. Because you told us last year there was an MOU that will enable you work more effectively with the private sector. And our understanding was that it would, one of the things would be to the private sector to commit themselves, the manufacturers to commit to non-manufacture, for example, of the single-use carrier bags below that micron. If you go to that section, it gives you the micron. Is it 30? Whatever it is. Yeah, below 30 micron. Now, if this is not happening, there's already a problem. So for me, the question of commitment, first, the political commitment itself on the part of the minister responsible to come up with accompanying regulations to this particular law, the National Environment Act, leaves a lot to be desired. And actually it's required very, very urgently. And then number two, we have a problem with the politics itself. The politics around the whole of this thing is very, very terrible. And I think the regulator, which is NEMA, is fearful, for example, of stepping on certain toes. Because if you are to implement that provision of the law to the letter, then probably you're going to step on toes. So you may step on toes of some politicians who have interest, for example, in the manufacture or in the plastic business, but above all, on the toes of the manufacturers. Manufacturers who claim the manufacture of plastics, for example, is creating so many jobs in the country and also is bringing revenue to the country. And they seem to have convinced our government also that without them, this economy cannot stand. I think that's where the biggest problem is. biggest problem is. So the enforcement remains a very big problem. But if you look at the proposals that we gave last year, together with when we had a joint follow-up dialogue after the World Environment Day dialogue with the BioVision Uganda, we had that dialogue with BioVision Uganda, and then we had those BioVision Uganda. Please, you'll excuse me. I need to be very particular. We had BioVision Uganda, and then we had Caritas Uganda, and then there is End Plastic Pollution Uganda. There were about 3 civil society organizations that organized a follow-up dialogue last year with a view of generating proposals, for the UN Summit on Plastics. UN Summit on Plastics. I think the UN Summit will be taking place this year, if it has not taken place already. And the purpose and the expectation is that this summit will come up with what they call a global UN plastic treaty, the plastic treaty. Currently, we don't have any plastic treaty at that level. So plastics is still managed under the general environmental rules, conventions, and treaties at that level. So this, if it goes through, is expected to be the very, very first treaty that is specific to plastic, because plastics is a global issue. Probably we are even less affected compared to some countries of the world. So we gave a wide range of proposals, and these proposals are also applicable, they're relevant actually to our own country. And one of them, I want to read them here. One of them is to set up national reduction targets. Do we have any national reduction targets for plastics in this country? I really doubt. We don't seem to have any target. Say, for example, by 2030, we want, for example, a certain kind of category of plastics to be out of circulation. We don't have those kind of things. And then number two, we also propose ending must be campaigned against, so that it doesn't have the market, for example, because of stringent regulations. So the question of additives, the feedback stock, including subsidies, all these should not be provided, for example, for manufacturers of plastics. Then also high plastic tax, impose tax, very high tax, will create disincentive, to the manufacturers of plastics. And then we also propose the phasing out of non-essential products or plastic products and uses, include particularly the primary microplastics, which are widely used in Uganda, by shopkeepers and so forth. And probably it poses the biggest threat because it is also the least recycled. Bottle plastics are more recycled, because I can see young boys and so forth collecting them all over the place. Actually, if you throw one out there, it will be picked almost immediately. So I think these ones are doing relatively well compared to those who are manufacturing, the single-use plastics or microplastics. Then we also propose quotas for reusable product and industrial packaging. Quotas. We also propose that. It's still applicable for our country, so our own government can consider some of these things. We gave these proposals to NEMA. And then also to scale up reusable alternatives to plastics. There are very many. Let's scale it up. Let's scale them up. For example, paper bags. There are many other innovations that are there. And if you abolish, for example, the single-use carrier bags, these innovations, for example, would be highlighted. These same factories could transform into alternative making factories. You remember, for example, during during COVID-19, certain factories here transformed in a very, very short time from manufacturing certain products they were manufacturing before into manufacturing sanitizers, for example. They transformed within a very, very short time, and government supported them. So why can't we support these manufacturers of plastic to be able to transform these industries, for example, or factories, for example, into machines for making alternatives, to plastics? And then also we thought guidelines, for example, on there must be guidelines, for example, on the manufacture, the use of plastics, for example, things like branding. And I remember in our engagement with the Parliament in 2018, we insisted very, very strongly on the need to brand every plastic that comes out for purpose of tracing, the manufacturer. That's in case this particular plastic piece, a piece of plastic, goes out there and causes any harm. Okay, that if you wanted to bring a suit, you could bring a suit against a particular manufacturer, because then that plastic would have indicated clearly who has manufactured it. But of course, this wasn't really taken. So if you look at the labels themselves, the labels currently are in paper. If you even look at the bottles, apart the plastic bottles, the labels are in paper, which can go away in time, and somebody can deny that they actually manufactured these themselves. So these are some of the ways for math. And then awareness raising is very critical. The public needs to be educated continuously. NEMA has tried this, but I think they're also losing the battle. And as Betty said, we need to go all out and also walk the talk. Ourselves who are talking against plastic. Within our institutions, we have to create no-go areas for plastics. NEMA has done it. You can never enter NEMA compound, for example, with any plastic, particularly banned plastics. So somehow, within our own institutions in the country, we need to do this kind of thing. Then within our homes, we need to do the same thing. You see, so can we have these bags that are usable, for example, for buying the day-to-day things that we need in our houses? So these are different mechanisms for reinforcement, for implementation of the anti-plastic policy and laws in this country.
Thank you very much, Flavia, and thank you so much, Godfrey. Before I come to the challenges, there is what we call now the triple RE, which is reduce, reuse, recycle, and educate. These are some of the ways that we need to reduce plastic from our environment. Like Godfrey was saying, we need to reduce the use of plastic. If you can, in your home, for example, have a reusable bag, like this crafts bag. You get it for shopping, particularly for the kitchen. When they are going to buy tomatoes, they go with this bag. They put tomatoes in there, they add some onions, they put what, and they come home. Tomorrow they use the same. Let us develop a culture as Ugandans of having our own bags. Those days we used to have bags made out of the reeds, out of the grass, out of what. Why don't we use this? Some people may say they are backward, but it is stylish. It is nice. It shows that you are really African. So let us get some carrier bags which are reusable. When they get dirty, we wash it. You give this person at home, please, this is your shopping. I got one for my mom and she was very happy, but she also wanted now to use it for only church and those gatherings of women. I said, no, this is for your daily shopping. When you're going to the market, even charcoal, you wrap it somewhere and put it in that bag. Even if you're going to buy whatever you're going to buy, vegetables, put in that bag. When it gets dirty, you wash it. That is the principle of reuse. The principle of reduce is like we just completely refuse. If you have already one plastic carrier bag, why do you need an extra? You find when you're going for shopping and you need 5 items, for example, you buy soap from this shopkeeper, he puts it in the plastic bag. You go to this shopkeeper, you want sugar, another plastic bag. You go to another shopkeeper. Why don't you say, no, this is enough to accommodate all of them? And there are these bigger bags, white in color, and they are really good. You can reuse it even for 1 full year if you can. Put everything there and walk home. That is to reduce. You can help reduce. What I am going to appeal to the viewers of this program today, let us remove the plastics from the demand side. If the demand side, that is me and you, says, I don't need your plastic bag or a kavera. I don't need your kavera, madam, keep it. I'm going to put this in my bag. It means that you have reduced the use of the kavera by 1 because you have refused it. So let us reduce the use of kavera and let us recycle them. Let's continue using them, take it to the recyclers. But unfortunately, the recyclers are very few. Can the government give incentives to the factories that want to recycle the plastics that we have on our environment to other things? Then educate. Let's continue educating. For us as a church organization, we have a very big platform. Every Sunday, we have hundreds of people coming to listen to the word of God. Why don't we also incorporate the protection of Mother Earth into our homilies every Sunday? This goes to the men of God. both Catholic, Anglicans, and also Muslims. Before you start your homily or your preaching, can you first have just 1 minute to talk about plastics, to talk about environmental conservation, to talk about the care for Mother Earth? I think with this, that is also what you do, because there is specialization of duties. Me, I know I am specialized in talking. I do talking very well. Wherever I go, I talk. For you, you're specialized in preaching the word of God. Why don't you preach about the evil that we are doing on the earth? So this is what we can do. The school children, you can participate by doing the cleaning by yourselves. And then other people, also the cultural leaders, you have to join you have to join the campaign so that we see to it that we clean Mother Earth. Flavia was asking about the challenges. What are some of the challenges that we face as Caritas Uganda? One is recklessness, mindset change among the communities, among God's people. Mindset change is needed for you and myself. We dispose the plastic anywhere in the environment. Other countries, for example, like in Rwanda, one time I made a mistake to carry something. I was carrying it in a kavera. Didn't I keep that kavera until I came back with it to Uganda? You see? So we have a mindset change problem, a mindset problem as a country, as Ugandans. We are used to disposing anything anywhere. That is one big problem that we need to address. The other problem that we need to address is politicizing everything in this country. Politics has become our bread and butter. Every day when we wake up in the morning, we only think of politics. When such a campaign comes in to try to rid our environment of plastics, then you find politicians coming in. Oh no, leave them. That is where we get our income. That is where we, no, that one I know him. You first leave him. Let's give him some time. And when we give him some time, 1 or 2 years down the road, we forget of everything. That is the challenge we have here in Uganda. Infrastructure is another challenge. We have very, very small or little infrastructure to help us in cleaning our environment, for example. When we are talking about the recycling factories, it is very few. They are countable actually. So we need to pull up our game to see to it that we have these recyclers increased. Let it become an income generating for many people. Yes, I see people collecting plastics here and there. Little boys in the streets, they collect and they take them somewhere. But we need many more of this so that we can support. Then also the other one is education. We lack the knowledge of what impact we are putting on our environment by so dropping the plastics everywhere. We do not know how this plastic gets into our digestive system as a human being. We think that the plastics are only on the environment and they can never come onto our plate. For your information, dear viewer out there, these plastics get into your cup, they get into your plate through the food system. So these are some of the challenges that we face as Caritas Uganda. There is very little support from the fellow human beings, God's people made in the image of God. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Betty. Still picking up on the challenges, how have you been able to address these challenges? Maybe in brief, you could tell us how you've been able to address the challenges.
Thank you very much. Charity begins at home. We encourage ourselves to try to reuse the plastics that we have in our families. That is to start from home, because when you start anything, make sure you are convinced by yourself. So for us as Caritas Uganda, we are convinced that this is doable. we have tried to encourage ourselves every time we come together to make sure we don't litter. But also in our office, we make sure we have the common user facility, for example, for water, so that we do not continue buying this bottled water every now and then. We make sure we reuse some of these things. The other one is advocacy and collaboration, synergies with other like-minded organizations. We have a culture, and we have built this over a time, that we need to work together with other civil society organizations, but also we need to partner with government to see to it that where government cannot reach, we as the church, we may reach. We complement the work of government. We also do a lot of advocacy, like Godfrey was saying, a lot of advocacy to see to it that we have policy and legislative processes that can support us to help rid these plastics from the environment. We also work with the young people. You know, these are people who are still energetic, to see to it that they help in reducing the use of plastic in the environment. But also we support some of them to see to it that we recycle the plastics that we have, so that from the national level we advocate for a policy environment. From the local level we support the communities down there to reuse, to reduce, and to recycle the plastics that are there. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Back to Godfrey. What are some of the specific success stories Caritas Uganda has encountered in mitigating the plastics within the communities?
But for me, the major success that we have scored is the inclusion of a ban on certain microns, you know, on that are below, for example, I think below 30, if I'm not mistaken. You'll excuse me. And that was the result of that engagement I talked about with the Natural Resources Committee, as well as the Uganda Manufacturers Association. So that remains for me the most outstanding. And not only did we propose the abolition, but also we did propose a very strong element of polluter pays principle. That's as far as plastics are concerned. Therefore, if you look at the whole of that section, it imposes very serious obligations on the manufacturers and those who handle plastics, and actually imposes penalties as well. We gave those proposals. So that particular provision of the law, we counted as a very big success, and a success because I think we were, as the Committee of Parliament was saying that time, were the main stakeholder that really came up with what we call a direct opposition, to the manufacture, importation, exportation, and exportation of plastics, particularly the single-use plastics. And that's why the committee invited us three times. It was really unprecedented, 3 times. And all the 3 times we appeared together. We, as Caritas Uganda, we sponsored it, and then 2, we took the lead in it. And we did it in partnership with the Climate Action Network Uganda, with many other CSOs. So we prepared position papers that gave very specific proposals, and these proposals, a good number of them were taken in. So for me, I consider that as a main success. Then number 2, we had also expected that the Namugongo, as a plastic-free zone, would eventually be reinforced to the letter. Partly yes, but still a lot of awareness is required. Apart from that big campaign, that time we did not see so much move in that direction, particularly by worshippers who come there. People now are disposing plastics anyhow. But this year, we're going to make an attempt once more as Caritas Uganda. We are making an arrangement on Namugongo Day, the 3rd. We'll be raising awareness on plastics, particularly safe disposal of garbage, and a very special focus on plastics, how to separate these plastics. And we are working on providing, for example, dustbins that will be very clearly labeled for plastics, post them here, degradable waste, put them there. And there'll be, and each of these containers will be carrying some message. And that message has to really do with an appeal to the worshippers to do the same in their homes, in everywhere they are, so that we can effectively manage many plastics which have become a menace to our environment. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much. As we come to a conclusion, what messages would you like to share with our viewers concerning World Earth Day, particularly regarding the theme of plastics versus planets?
We want to thank the viewers so much. And the message that for me I have for the viewers today is we need to take responsibility and we need to protect and save Mother Earth from what we have done. By the way, if you're not aware, you and me have killed Mother Earth. And Mother Earth is crying for help from you and me. If we truly say we believe in God and we love God and we love each other, can we love Mother Earth? Can we protect Mother Earth? Can we save Mother Earth? Can we treat Mother Earth the way we treat our bodies when we fall sick? At the moment, Mother Earth is sick. She cannot even get up. She cannot even do anything. But you and me can treat Mother Earth. That is the big message that I'm sending out there to the general community, to government. Can we walk the talk? If we said, NEMA, this is directly to you. If we said the end date for the manufacturing of these plastic bags which are not permitted is 2024, this is the year for us. Can we walk the talk? Can we ensure this is the end date? And then we see how we proceed out there. To the families, can we get for our people back at home the helpers we have? Can we get for them shopping bags? Something which is nice for them to carry here and there to go to the market to buy the foodstuffs we have. Can we educate the people, the religious leaders out there, irrespective of which sect you belong to? Can you teach God's people every day? Can you remind them of how they have destroyed Mother Earth? This is the message that I'm sending out there. And I believe and pray God will help us to listen.
Thank you very much, Betty. Godfrey, in just a sentence, what message do you have for our viewers?
For me, the last message, I want to take that directly from the Laudato Si by Pope Francis. And this is what lies at the root of our irresponsible use of natural resources, the responsible abuse, of the environment. It stems from the fact that we consider ourselves as separate from nature. But the Pope is saying nature cannot be regarded as something separate from ourselves or as a mere setting in which we live. It's not a setting where we live. We are part of nature, part and parcel of nature. So the human being is not on top of nature. The human being is an integral part of that nature. That's why we are born in nature, we survive on nature, then eventually we are buried in nature. A concept that I really love very much. I first read this years ago when I was in Uganda Matters University. The same notion was advanced by the late Professor Munyonyo, Remigio Munyonyo, in a little book, Mutafiti series in Uganda Matters. If you go to the library, you will find it in the Africa series. The title is Sustainable Development in a Dock. So he critiqued the concept notion of sustainable development, which was coined during the Kyoto during the summit in Kyoto many years ago. And what was saying is that sustainable development, although seem to be the catchword now, has limitations because, like its predecessor, it still places the human person on top of the rest of creation, except that it advises the human person to use creation in a certain way. But it says the best way to understand our relationship with the creation is to think in terms of sustainable coexistence. Coexistence, meaning we are an integral part of that creation, therefore we must coexist. And the Pope is very clear. The Pope is clear. Let me end by this. The Pope is saying everything is closely related, and that today's problems call for a vision capable of taking into account every aspect of the global crisis. Now he said, we have to look at the ecosystems, that we need only recall how ecosystems interact in dispersing carbon dioxide. Without carbon dioxide dispersed by these trees, there can never be a human being. Okay? Then how nature has its mechanisms for purifying water that we drink. Its own mechanism. We don't even need Puritans. We now need Puritans because we have destroyed the environment. We have destroyed the water bodies. You see, in the villages, people still drink water pure in the bush there, you know, from the flowing streams. Then nature is its own way of controlling illnesses and epidemics. That's what it's saying. But now this system is broken down, forming soil, breaking down waste, and in many other ways which we overlook or simply do not know about. I love these expressions. Thank you very much.
This was quite an interesting conversation. Thank you very much, Betty, for joining us on the show. Thank you very much, Godfrey, for sharing these wonderful insights and your tireless efforts towards protecting the environment. Thank you, our viewers, for tuning in. My name is Flavia Kunihira. I've been the host for the show, Caritas Focus. Stay tuned on Uganda Catholic Television. And I would like to remind you that in the months of May and June, Caritas Uganda is carrying out a number of activities in commemoration for the World Earth Day and the World Environment Day. Let us join hands to protect and save our Mother Earth. Thank you very much.